Welcome to the tree dedication for Ellen Clark Sargent. My name is Sheila Stein, committee member for the famous marching presidents of Nevada City, California. 34 years, the famous marching presidents have been marching in the Constitution Day Parade and have celebrated America's most popular document, the Constitution of the United States. This year's celebration, we are honoring Nevada City pioneer woman suffrage leader, Ellen Clark Sargent. On August 26, 1920, that's right, 100 years ago today, is the 100th anniversary of the signing of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. This amendment granted women the right to vote. Ellen Clark Sargent was a prominent suffrage leader and resident of Nevada City. She founded one of the earliest West Coast suffrage organizations in 1869. Ellen worked tirelessly to secure women's voting rights and important civil liberties with her entire family for over 4 decades. To commemorate Arbor Day earlier this year, on April 24th, 2020, this tree was planted in Calanan Park. A dogwood was selected for this spot and purchased with funds donated at the Fall Color Nevada City Tree Tour, a Nevada City Chamber of Commerce event. This tree specimen is Eddie's White Wonder. You see, Ellen was born in Massachusetts and moved to Nevada City in 1852. This tree symbolizes Ellen Sargent's hybrid of the Eastern and Western cultures in America and dedicated to her memory and to her work to secure the right for women to vote. Special thanks go out to Zeno and Erin Acton of Acton Arboriculture, Pamela Berry for helping select this particular variety and specimen, as well as proper planting by the Actons. Kathy Whittlesey, former Mrs. Nevada City Chamber of Commerce, was on hand with her trusty shovel to break ground. Further kudos go out to Dawn Sidonis and Bubba Highsmith of the City of Nevada City. At this time, I'd like to introduce Erin Minette, our current mayor of Nevada City. Erin, come on up.
Thank you.
You bet.
Well, thank you all for being here and honoring the 19th Amendment passed 100 years ago. Nevada County has a proud history of support and involvement in the suffrage movement. Ellen Sargent lived in Nevada City from 1852 to 1872. She raised her family here. In 1869, she was the prime mover in the formation of the suffrage organization at the county, state, and national levels. Several years later, Senator Ellen Sargent introduced a version of the 19th Amendment to Congress. I think it's safe to assume that she had significant influence over her husband. The amendment was reintroduced 41 years later and passed the following year in 1920. From the beginning of women's rights movement in the U.S. in 1848, it took 72 years to secure the vote for women. In 1963, Kennedy signed the Equal Pay Act. We're getting close to 72 years after that. 15 more years, and hopefully its promise will also be fully realized at that time. As Nevada County looks at the next 100 years, let's continue to manifest tolerance, openness to the needs of all, and kindness. And in the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, a mature person is one who does not think only in absolutes, who is able to be objective even when deeply stirred emotionally, who has learned that there is both good and bad in all people, in all things, and who walks humble and deals charitably with the circumstances of life, knowing that in this world no one is all-knowing, and therefore all of us need love and charity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin. That was great. At this time, I'd like to introduce Laddie Birdsong as Ellen Clark Sargent. Bravo.
My name is Ellen Clark Sargent, and I came to Nevada City from Massachusetts in 1852. My husband, Aaron Sargent, preceded me here by several years while he managed a newspaper, studied law, and built a small house on the lot where the beautiful big Sargent house now is. I was interested in women's voting rights and in 1869, while raising a family, I founded the first women's suffrage group here, the Nevada County Women's Suffrage Association. Soon afterward, I became president of the California Women's Suffrage Association. My good friend, Susan B. Anthony, and I were also active at the national level. We began to advocate for a constitutional amendment granting American women the right to vote. Aaron was elected to Congress in 1860, and we and our 3 children moved to Washington, where we lived for 12 years. In 1872, Aaron was elected to the Senate, United States Senate. In Washington, in 1878, he proposed the language for an amendment to the U.S. Constitution giving women the right to vote. Here are his words. The right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. The same 29 words were introduced each year for over 40 years until at last came the 19th Amendment to the Constitution in 1920. Our work helped in California, giving the women the right to vote in 1911. My dear husband died in 1887, long before his efforts led to success. Ellen died in 1911 after working diligently for the right to vote for California.
Fran Cole, very active in Western Nevada County League of Women Voters, will speak next.
To the wrongs that need resistance, to the right that needs assistance, to the future in this distance, give yourselves. This was written by Carrie Chapman Catt, who founded the League of Women Voters on February 14, 1920, 6 months prior to the passage of the 19th Amendment. She founded the League based on the belief that the vote is the emblem of equality. In addition to the anniversary today of the 19th Amendment, I am proud to say that this is also the 100th anniversary of the formation of the League of Women Voters. The League is nonpartisan, meaning that it does not endorse any particular party or any particular candidate. In her address to the National Women's Suffrage Association's 1919 convention, Carrie proposed the creation of the League to finish the fight, saying, "In the adjustment of the new order of things, we women demand an equal voice. We shall accept nothing less." Carrie said, "The politicians used to ask why we wanted to vote. They seemed to think we wanted to do something particular with it, something we were not telling about. They did not understand that women wanted to improve the general welfare of the people." The political strategy that ensured the passage was a shrewd state-by-state campaign led by Catt, and it wasn't a pretty fight. The white suffragettes had to pacify racist politicians in the South who feared having their numbers outvoted were black women to vote. Women weren't given or granted the right to vote. They fought for decades, and many like Ellen Sargent and Susan B. Anthony didn't live to see its passage. Some states didn't ratify until the 1980s, with Mississippi becoming the last state to ratify in 1985. And it's also important to acknowledge that it did not give the right to vote to all women. We should celebrate the Black suffragettes, like Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, and Mary Church Terrell. Women of color, especially in the South, did not have full voting rights due to poll taxes and literacy tests, keeping women of color from voting until passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. The grandfather clause, which barred people from voting unless their grandfathers had, was an impossibility for many black voters. Literacy tests were used to disenfranchise minorities until as late as the 1970s, and it wasn't until 1952 that all Asians under the McCrary Act were granted the right to become citizens. Ellen died 3 months before California voted in favor of women's suffrage in 1911, and 9 years before the 19th Amendment was passed and a League of Women Voters was formed. And even though Ellen did not live to see the League, her work led to its creation, and it is part of her legacy. I think she would have been proud of the League's work. What does the League do? Our Public Advocacy for Voter Protection project has teams of volunteer activists working to combat voter discrimination and barriers to the registration process. Millions of voters use vote411.org, the League's online resource, together with hundreds of nonpartisan candidate forums around the country to increase voter education. We fight against the flood of secret money in politics and its corruptive influences. We actively campaign to have our leaders fight against climate change. We fight for reproductive rights and to ensure access to affordable health care. The fact for the first time we have a woman of color on the presidential ticket is a reminder of how far we still need to go. Gender is still a real barrier for women. Political scientist McConaughey said, "The overarching legacy of the 19th Amendment is the lesson that democracy is always unfinished business that requires broad and concerted efforts to maintain and improve." For 100 years, the League has flourished as a grassroots force in our society, defending democracy. Its mandate today is every bit as important as it was a century ago. The League would not play the role it does in our elections had it not been for Ellen Sargent and her fellow suffragettes.
On behalf of the famous marching presidents, I'd like to thank today's speakers, Aaron Minette, Mayor of Nevada City, Gladys Birdsong, Ellen Clark Sargent, and Fran Cole from the League of Women Voters. Hope you all enjoyed this and urge you all to use your right to vote November 2020.
Hello, my name is David Parker. I'm the president of the famous Marching Presidents of Nevada City, California. We're excited to be part of this grand celebration of this human rights of the women to vote in America. We also accept the responsibilities that our job is not done, and we will work continuously to have equality for all in our lovely land. We're also doing a special event. It's an original play created by Pamela Berry and Mary Baird, and you should look forward to it. It is a play about Ellen Clark Sargent. It's an original play. Look forward to